You are live.
And we stopped on this category, fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah. In the cause of Allah. This is actually an important category, especially for us Muslims living in the West in general, and in the USA in particular. Why it is important? Um, because mainly here for the Islamic work, we depend on our own donation. This is a very secular, USA is a very secular society. There is no support or supervision, for any religious-based organizations. They are completely independent. Okay, maybe the positive part of this issue is that the government, the federal government, does not get involved in the structure of the Islamic organizations or religious organizations. The positive part of it is that you are granted 501c non-for-profit organization by the time that you establish a place of worship, whether it is a masjid for Muslims or church for Christians or synagogue for Jews, okay, or any place of worship for Hindu, for Sikh, for whatever the tradition or the denomination or religion might be. This is actually a very good news and a lot of support from the government. But when it comes to finance, the government tells you, sorry, you are by your own. Sorry, you are by your own. You take care of your place of worship. So the reality is that we Muslims build our Islamic schools, universities, politics-based organizations, social organizations, charitable organizations, masajid to start with. All the above and many more are just built exclusively by the support, by the generosity of the Muslim community. And this is actually, our practice since maybe early the 60s of the last century. Muslim community get together, they just elect leadership, they start raising fund and building their own institute. Now, why this long introduction? It is just to give us a hint or idea actually why we need to focus on a proper understanding of the category of fi sabilillah. When you say linguistically fi sabilillah, it means for the cause of Allah. For the cause of Allah. There is no specification, linguistic wise. There is no specification, okay, of fi sabilillah. So that's why you read, for example, when someone came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and brought a camel, okay, he wanted to give, that camel fi sabilillah, okay, like, for the cause of Allah. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Da'hu fil hajj," put that camel, for hajj purposes, which means in a very simple language, just designate that camel, okay, for whosoever wants to perform hajj, but he or she does not have a transportation. Okay, so you keep that camel in like on hold, until you are requested by anyone to give it to him or to her to just ride it and go perform hajj and then bring it back to you. That's the meaning of ضعه في الحج فإن الحج في سبيل الله. So في سبيل الله does not necessarily mean like certain category, despite the fact that the common practice or the most prevailing practice since the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ on is that some people or the vast majority of those who go out in an expedition, and sometimes they apply legitimate jihad activities for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They just go and fight for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal to secure, the spread of the word of Allah Azza wa Jal against those who are resisting it. Okay, so those fighters, those soldiers used to go voluntarily without being paid. So just imagine that someone has a store, has a business, has a job, and he or she just quit everything and goes with the Prophet ﷺ. He might stay for days, for weeks, sometimes even for months, okay, without leaving behind any source of income for his family. So for that purpose, okay, it became a very common practice that a certain portion of the zakah collection should be designated for whom? For those mujahideen, for those fighters for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. Is it the case nowadays? Well, in my assessment, it's really to find, legitimate jihad activities nowadays. Okay, there are a lot of groups and a lot of wars here or there across the globe. Without going into details, it's really hard to determine who's right and who's wrong, and who's fighting for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal versus those who fight for their own cause. Okay, who is right and who's wrong, who's on the right path, who's on the wrong path. So determining legitimate jihad activities, especially with the lack of legitimate leadership, okay, in the Muslim world, it's really hard to determine that, okay, this particular practice in such and such country is a legitimate jihad. Thus, they deserve, money from zakah so they can support themselves. This is from one side. From the other side, nowadays the whole situation is different. Soldiers in any army in any country, whether you're talking about the US or China or North Korea or Saudi Arabia or Jordan or Canada or Australia, wherever you go, nowadays the whole structure actually is different. Those soldiers and officers and military leaders are getting paid, so they take it as a job. Okay, they get paid, salary. They receive health care. They receive, life insurance and other benefits and retirement accounts and on and on. So there are no volunteers, so to speak. Okay, there is no volunteers, or there are no volunteers, okay, who apply. I mean, assuming that there is jihad for the cause of Allah, like actual military activities, there are no volunteers, okay, in most of the cases. Everybody actually is getting paid. So now military activities, I would say, are more structured, okay, now than it was before. So even if you want to go with the mainstream practice that fi sabilillah means for jihad activities, well, there are no volunteers nowadays to give them, from zakatul mal. The third thing that we need to consider here is that the need for that money to support Islamic work in the US. Okay, as they say nowadays, no money, no honey. If you want to move on with your Islamic work in the US, if you want to build more masajid and to make sure that the Muslim community is well covered and well, served anytime, anywhere in the US, then you have no choice but to establish masajid for them. I mean, this is the starting point to build any Muslim community, and I don't think you disagree with me. And there is no enough support from the community if you exclude zakatul mal. Yes, we have, alhamdulillah, very supportive and very generous community at large. This is for fact. I'm not saying this. This is for fact. Alhamdulillah, hundreds, if not even thousands of masajid have been established by the support, by the generosity of the Muslim community. Should we include zakatul mal here, zakatul mal, under the category fi sabilillah, to cover the building, okay, the construction and the maintenance and the operation expenses of the masajid? Based on what I already explained, if you want to add to that, that the Prophet ﷺ, in a very authentic hadith, considered education as a kind of jihad. He said, جاهدوا المشركين بأموالكم وأنفسكم وألسنتكم. Okay, apply jihad against the enemies of Islam بأموالكم, with your money, وأنفسكم, with your bodies, like the physical jihad, وألسنتكم, by your tongues. By your tongues means, through education, through debate, through verifying the truth and spreading the word of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the Prophet ﷺ himself, if you want to go with the literal meaning of fi sabilillah, that it is none but jihad, well, jihad actually does not have to be the physical one. It could be the educational one. It could be the financial one, according to this hadith. You see, and that's why a very essential, a very historic actually fatwa has been issued all the way back in 1405. Today we are in 1441, so we're talking about 37, 38 years ago. There was a very outstanding fatwa issued by the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League. They mention clearly that fi sabilillah is not to be restricted to the physical jihad or the physical military activities. It should include any da'wah activities, as long as there is a need for that money, as long as you trust that organization that you want to spend your money or your zakah money under the category of fi sabilillah, then you can definitely pay zakatul mal. Okay, I'm not talking about the optional charity or donation or the sadaqah. No, I'm talking about zakatul mal. We are here to discuss zakatul mal, and now we are discussing the 8 different categories or the eligible zakah recipients. Okay, based on this historic and essential fatwa by the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League, that da'wah, as you see here, da'wah activities could be included in this category as deemed appropriate, especially in the West. Especially in the West. Why in the West? Because again, the West at large is a secular society, okay, or secular countries. They do not support any religious or religion-based organizations, other than the fact that they facilitate for you doing whatever you want. They give you the permission, they give you the 501c non-for-profit status, they give you tax exempt, which is something wonderful. I really appreciate it that the government here or the system in the US does allow people of different faith to practice their faith and to build their own place of worship and to do whatever they want within the limits of the law of the land without violating the law of the land. That's something actually really appreciated. This is a part of the freedom of speech and freedom of religion that we all enjoy in this society. Having said that, after this fatwa of the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League, a lot of fiqh councils across the globe followed that fatwa. Maybe the latest one is the fatwa that has been issued by our fiqh council, where I'm a part of, which is the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AMJA, AMJA online.org. You can check our website, AMJA online, AMJA online.org. AMJA stands for the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. We did discuss this issue on a scholarly level, and we found out that it's very, very legitimate, very reasonable to say that taking care of the masajid, okay, or the Islamic work in the US at large could be safely, could be confidently included in the category of fi sabilillah. Based on that, can you pay your zakatul mal, the 2.5% that you pay in the month of Ramadan? Most probably. Can you designate that fund for building a masjid? Yes, you can. For building a school? Yes, you can. For maintaining a school or university? Yes, you can. For maintaining a masjid? For covering the expenses of the masjid? Okay. For covering the expansion of the masjid? For the operation? For whatever expense might be, as long as there is a need for that, and the sadaqah, regular sadaqah outside zakatul mal, is insufficient for that masjid, then you can definitely pay zakatul mal to cover the expense and to help your own masjid. So based on that, I would highly recommend that you take this fatwa into consideration. And from now on, if you were refraining from paying zakatul mal to your own masjid, go ahead and confidently pay your zakat to your own masjid. On top of that, because of the pandemic, that you are still actually struggling, and some of the masajid are still closed, and some of them are partially open. Okay, they lost a lot of money, a lot of donation in the month of Ramadan. In the month of Ramadan, the masajid were completely closed. There was no tarawih, there was no salah, and thus there was like no fundraising activities whatsoever. And that's why a lot of masajid actually tend to do online fundraising through Zoom and GoToMeeting. The outcome result was, very humble comparison to the actual connection that they used to collect, before COVID-19. Now the masajid are struggling financially. They have outstanding balances. They have a lot of expenses, overhead expenses, operation, expansion, whatever the expenditure might be. They are actually in shortage, so they want money. If you did not pay your zakah in full in the month of Ramadan, I highly recommend you that you do so as soon as possible. And I want you to start with your local masjid, the masjid that you enjoy yourself and your spouse and your kids. You go together, you enjoy the youth activities and the sleepover and the family night and the lectures and the activities and the iftar. And in Ramadan, outside Ramadan, go ahead and support your masjid. Make sure that your masjid actually is well off financially, and that there is no need, for the masjid administration to go out and to seek fund or to solicit the support of outsiders. Okay, you should start with your own masjid. You should take care of your own masjid. To conclude here, fi sabilillah, under the category fi sabilillah, you can pay zakatul mal to build and to maintain and to support the operation expense of the masajid, of the Islamic schools, of the Islamic universities. Guidance College, by the way, is absolutely an eligible zakah recipient. If you did not pay your zakah, go ahead and support Guidance College. We spread authentic and relevant Islamic knowledge across USA, and recently we opened the floor for Canadian students actually to join Guidance College online. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of, well, not a lot of, all of our professors actually are outstanding when it comes to their academic qualification and their experience in teaching. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of imams who are like religious leaders in their communities are joining Guidance College. We have a lot of converts. Okay, we have a diverse student population. We have students like Chinese Americans. We have Hispanic. We have Indo-Pak. We have Arab. We have white Americans. We have African Americans. Alhamdulillah, we have a very diverse student population, and we are so proud of that. That all those students found out that Guidance College is the right place for them to seek knowledge. And a good number of those students, by the way, cannot afford the very nominal tuition fees that we charge. And that's why the floor is widely open for you all to support students. You can sponsor a student. You can pay whatever you can afford for the sponsorship, for the scholarship, for the financial aid, for the grants that we give for our students. Guidance College, alhamdulillah, is now actively pursuing regional accreditation with SACS, with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. This is one of the most prestigious accreditation bodies in the US. We have been working with SACS since the inception of the University of Guidance College, or Alqudah University, back in 2011, 2012. And inshallah, we are almost there. We already applied. We already received like the first response from SACS. We are working on it, inshallah. And the plan is to reapply again in the month of August 2020. That is 2 months from now, inshallah. We're going to reapply again, and hopefully with the grace, with the help, with the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then with your help and your support, you will be hearing the good news that Guidance College became a fully accredited university in the USA, alhamdulillah. Maybe you do not know that much about Guidance College. Go to our website. Even if you type nowadays Alqudah university.org, it will take you to the same website, which is Guidance College. They are like two different names for the same school. We do offer a bachelor degree in Islamic studies, okay, and we have masters in Islamic education, and we have masters in Islamic finance, and that's it. We do not have any other major or any other program other than those three. You may ask why Islamic finance? Because this is a very promising and very growing actually industry in the US, and we want to inject in the US finance and banking system professionals in Islamic finance who can inject and add more values actually to the American finance system or the US finance and economic system. There are a lot of opportunities out there, to work for Islamic mortgage companies, for socially responsible mutual fund companies, for investment companies, for like different opportunities for those who are like into Islamic finance. And the Islamic education actually is important, to make sure that the teachers who teach our students in different Islamic schools are qualified enough. Okay, we want to make sure that the teacher who teaches my kids and your kids Islam and Islamic studies and Quran and Arabic as second language is qualified enough. He or she holds a degree. Okay, getting his knowledge or her knowledge from an authentic and relevant, university like Guidance College. So in order for us to reach to that goal, we had no choice but to establish master's program in Islamic education, where we just focus on different fields that students of knowledge need, like the Aqidah, for example, the Islamic creed, and the Islamic law, and the Quran recitation and memorization, and the seerah or the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, and the prophetic tradition or the Sunnah. We teach like various topics, again to make sure that those graduates who will be going back to Islamic schools and serve the community are knowledgeable, are qualified, are certified enough. And that's why I wholeheartedly believe that Guidance College is an eligible, zakah recipient. Please consider Guidance College for your zakah for this year and for years to come, inshallah. Moving on, the last category is the wayfarer or Ibn Sabil. Ibn Sabil, as you see here, anyone who is stranded by circumstances without having an access to money, for basic needs. Okay, a very good example nowadays are the refugees and those who apply for political asylum, like political asylees. Okay, are good example, like practical contemporary example of Ibn Sabil. Here in the US, we have a lot of refugees who came from Iraq, who came from Syria, who came from Somalia, came from all over the world. Some of those refugees back home in their homeland, they are well off. They have like a lot of money and a lot of assets. But when they came to the US, they were unable to bring any of the above with them. So they left everything behind. So technically speaking, they are poor. Okay, although in reality they are rich. Okay, but what does richness have to do if you or how can you benefit from your richness, okay, or being well off if you do not have an access to that money or to that asset? As I said, they have properties, they have money, they have assets, they have different investments back home, but they do not have an access to any of whatever they have back home. Okay, that's why they are called Ibn Sabil. They are stranded. They lost the access to their properties, although apparently they are well off back home, but in reality, technically speaking, they are poor, right? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated a certain category for them. They are not fuqara. Okay, if you still remember, we said the first category is al-fuqara wal-masakin. Whether al-faqir is the one who has a source of income but is insufficient, and miskin is the one who does not have. Whether al-faqir is the one who asks openly for sadaqah, while al-miskin is the one who does not. Whatever classification you want to go with, Ibn Sabil is different from al-faqir. Ibn al-Sabil back home is a wealthy individual. Here in the US does not have any access to his or her wealth overseas, right? And that's why has been called Ibn al-Sabil. Anyone who is stranded by circumstances without access to money, for basic needs. That people actually are definitely eligible zakah recipients. As I said, refugees, political asylees nowadays, travelers, okay, are included in this category. Now, since we counted the 8 different eligible zakah recipients, it means that otherwise are ineligible. Okay, if those people are not fuqara or masakin or عاملين عليها مؤلفة قلوبهم في الرقاب الغارمين في سبيل الله وابن السبيل, if they are not any of those 8 different categories, then by default they are not eligible zakah recipients, right? So our topic for next week will be about the non-zakah recipients. Who are the categories and the individuals in which you cannot give zakat al-mal, as well as we'll be discussing like some as they call it miscellaneous, like different zakah rules, just to make sure that your zakah calculation is accurate, your zakah collection, if you work in this field, is authentic, and your zakah distribution is accurate and good enough. That inshallah will be our discussion for the next week. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.